10th anniversary, you guys. I was kind of back there pretending like you were all here for my birthday, and so it got me a little bit excited. But really, after 15 years, it's kind of all of our birthdays, because this has been very much a community affair. I'm curious by shows. I'm going to tell you about this guy right here. So the way this story came to me, we either have presenters submit a proposal through an RFP process, or I'm just listening and talking to as many people as possible, and sometimes it's local, who some of you may know, Maya Yasui. And she said, I just want to tell you kind of what we're up to. And I said, okay, so we went and got coffee. And in the course of the conversation, she shared a film that had been produced about this man right here. And I'm going to tell you more about how that led to me meeting Amy. But first, I want to tell you about Homer. Homer is someone who is very special to me and also happens to be very special to Amy. You're going to hear some more about him tonight. I first met Homer before I was part of Sense of Place. I was hired to produce a podcast or create a podcast called Here in the Gorge, which is our companion podcast to Sense of Place. Maybe some of you guys have heard it. And the very first interview for the very first episode happened to be Homer. I drove up to Seattle. The story was about the Yasui family and some of the history of Minoru Yasui, who, if you've seen The Rock at the library, that is recognizing, among many things, Minoru for being awarded the only Presidential Medal of Freedom any Oregon has ever been awarded, local person. And so I went up and met with Homer thinking we would sort of talk about that, and we ended up talking a lot about his father and how he ended up in the Gorge and what ensued with the orchards in World War II and internment camps. What's really special about tonight is, with all people, there are so many different parts to them. And tonight, in this short film to kick things off, we're going to get to see the part of Homer that loved Matsutake. So Homer's part of the reason that I'm here with you tonight. And as a special gift, Homer's niece's son, Caleb Haas, and his granddaughter, Mari Heyman, gave us permission to share this film tonight only. And I hope this gets you in the mood for what Amy has to share afterwards. And I hope that you end up loving Homer as much as I think Amy and I do. So I'll let Joe take it away. Homer. Okay, I hope Homer got you guys ready for some Matsutake stories from Amy. Joe, if you real quick can go get it to my slides for one more little bit. I'll go over the quick plan for tonight is Amy's going to tell us some more. She's obviously brought a ton of things for us to check out afterwards. So we'll hear from Amy. We're going to get to see things. We'll have some time for a Q&A at the end. I wanted to also thank so many of you are here are sponsors. So many of you buy tickets and donate a little extra. And I can't say enough how much that makes this possible for us to have people like Amy, and also makes it accessible to so many more people, both here in the theater and tuning in from the live stream. Hello at home. And I also want to thank our presenting sponsors and let you know that Sense of Place is a program at Mount Adams Institute, which is a local nonprofit doing this kind of outdoor connect with nature work here in the Gorge, but also across the country. So thank you to them. And please, actually, I want to tell you really quickly how I found Amy. Go back to Maya, who I think is right here. So Maya sent me this video, and I watched it and thought, oh my gosh, I want to have a Sense of Place about Matsutake. Now, who is going to do it? And I remembered maybe 5 or 6 years earlier, someone had shared a video about the Matsutake hunter. So I went down a Google hole and tried to find this video. I couldn't remember where I'd seen it. And I found it, and it was Amy in it. But I didn't know Amy. But I knew someone who'd worked on the film. So I wrote to that person, and I said, do you know Amy? And they gave me your contact info. And so then I reached out to you out of the blue, which that email I have to write every so often, and I have to quickly try to convince someone that I'm not crazy and it's worth reading what I have to say. And she was on board immediately because she loves talking about mushrooms in Japanese history are kind of top of the list for you, I think. And she today came straight from the mountain and some mushroom hunting to be here with you tonight. So help me welcome Amy Peterson to Central Lake Season 15.
Hi, sorry I have a bad back, so I have to move around. I can't stay stationary. Anyway, we'll get you up there. Okay, so there we go. Me, a forager. I'm a third generation Japanese American, and I was from Boring, Orient, and Gresham. Do you guys know where that is? Okay, yay! My maternal grandfather came in 1903, and while logging, he and his brother had a sawmill in Bull Run, and my paternal grandfather foraged while logging in Timber, Oregon in 1917. And I learned about edible plants in Girl Scouts, as well as the medicinal aspects of plants from my maternal grandfather. So it's something that I've liked, I enjoyed. I don't remember how old I was when I first started hunting mushrooms. I was that young. And so, but then later on when I had a memory, that's what I remember, was just going, like Homer said, with a family and going out half the day and hunting and hunting and hunting, and then you get hungry, so you stop and you have your bento. And most of the people my age or around my age, their big thing about Matsutake hunting was the bento. So their friends from school or the neighborhood or whatever, they became Japanese by osmosis or something, and they like the bento too. They can't tell you anything about the mushroom hunting, but they remember the bento. So what my grandfather foraged were cascara or chitum bark for tea, and it's a laxative. So we would go out into the forest and cut some bark and dry it and store it. And then in the springtime, we would eat bracken fern shoots, much like asparagus. I don't like the tips of asparagus, and I don't like the tips of bracken fern, but a lot of people like the tips, so that's a lady fern. When you hear about ferns, a lot of times that's the type of fern you'll have. But I like the ones on the right. See the one at the very left, your left, very far left, the one that's curved over? That's the perfect size, perfect tasting, perfect everything. So as I'm going through my material, because back in 2005, a group of people at the Japanese American Museum of Oregon, then called the Oregon Nikkei Legacy Center, decided to put together a display of Matsutake. So on that committee was Homer, and a friend of my mother's, Liki Nakashimada, and myself, Valerie Otani, her brother Bill, who was with the Forest Service, so we got that connection too. And I found this book, or pamphlet, that the Forest Service and the state had put together about Matsutake and what the contribution is to the forest and how the forest returns back to us. So in the fall, and on the drive from Mount Hood to here, Adams is just like this, covered in snow, first snowfall, and it just gives you a sense of place. It gives you a sense of I'm home, a sense of it's time, a sense of the world is getting calmer. Hunting in the early years, there were lots of Matsutake. Back in the 40s, 50s, 60s. I'm not that old, but I can tell you what happened before because of pictures. So you can see my cousins who, on this side, my cousins who never really did Matsutake hunting. They don't know how to cook them. They don't know how to do much of anything, but uh, they can eat bento. So their mom is the one in the middle that made the bentos and things like that. She cooked all the food. She passed away in April at 103. But this is the reason why we all went Matsutake hunting, because it was either a group or a family unit. So when I went with this is circa 1942, so this was before the war, and this is what people did. They stopped and ate. But what was my thought? This is 1977 with the Akiyama family. Does anybody know the Akiyama family? Okay. This guy right here is the nephew. That's Mitch Tomita. He loaned me the picture, or gave me the picture to use. But back in the day, there were so many mushrooms that we did. We gathered them in 100-pound rice sacks and apple boxes, that sort of thing. And we only took what we could use. Can you believe that? Because a lot of those mushrooms were given to people who could no longer hunt, or relatives who were as far away as Japan, but mostly California, that sort of thing. And then we pickled, we canned mushrooms. And at that time, in the 60s and 70s, there were still canning processors in Portland. So we just took them, cleaned them up, and cut them up, and took them to the processor. They put them in little tuna cans size, and then we had them all year long, or mason jars or whatever. So everything, almost everything I ate growing up had matsutake in it. And I so miss it because my wonderful husband of 41, almost 42 years, the first time I made chow mein for him with my proudly obtained matsutake, he immediately said, "What did you say? These are wild. I won't eat these." And throw it out. So after that, I had to bring home mushrooms, quickly get them through the house out to the backyard, and give them away, or cook them while he was sleeping or something like that, because couldn't do it while he was awake. He could smell them, so I said, "Well, why can't you find them? If you can smell them when I just walk them through the house, can't you just go out with me and smell them?" Didn't work. So let me tell you a little bit about the life cycle of a matsutake. A matsutake is different from other types of mushrooms because they cannot be cultivated. Now, out there on the web, they will tell you, "Oh yes, you can grow these at home. All you need are red pines in about 5 years' time, and you could have your own matsutake growing in your yard." Well, I don't know about you, but I'm not that familiar with red pines growing in the United States. They grow in Japan. And I'm not so sure about sporing matsutake, but you can buy them online. It's just the reality of it is very slim. So they start out with spores, and they develop mycelium. Now, mycelium are those little fibrous networks that grow underground. And you know, we have the biggest mycelium fungus thing in the world out in eastern Oregon. But this is what it looks like. And if you're ever hunting mushrooms and you see the white, you've gone too far. Cover it back up, make it nice and safe, sound, and protected. And then once the temperatures and the rains and all of the things come together, now there's a lot of people that have different ideas of what it takes to grow a matsutake. They think that you have to have rain. Have we had rain this summer? Not a whole lot. But can you see there's matsutake out there? Plus a lot of other mushrooms. The chanterelles have been going bananas, as well as the lobster mushrooms. All of those mushrooms have been going absolutely nuts because there's moisture in the ground, and the duff may look dry, but if you scrape down, it's moist underneath there. Now with this rain that we've had just in the last few days, in the last couple of days, I'm starting to see mushrooms come up. But this is how they'll peek out. They'll come out with a mound. Homer was talking about a shrump, a bump, whatever. And the difference between the bumps is how you can tell different mushrooms. So the Matsutake will have a pretty domed lid bump, and it'll just come straight up. Now this mushroom, which is the Rusula, white Rusula, it will come up a little bit earlier than the Matsutake, but it'll have a wider bump. So it'll spread out, and so you'll be able to tell that it's a different bump. And then you take your stick and you touch the bump and you go, oh, here's the edge, but my stick is going farther and it's not hitting anything. So then you know that it's a Rusula, and you don't have to dig it up, you don't have to take the top off, you just know that from that edge to this point, it's too far. This was one I found in 2010 at Ramona Falls Trail, and that was a 2-pounder. And that was just the tsubomi, or the bud. So they can get big. This one last year was a little bit old, but you know, a lot of us love the really old ones because they have more smell, they have more flavor, they're bigger, and they go farther. So you want something like that, and it's got a real stiff stipe or stem. Whereas this one, if you squish it, it deteriorates. So then they get old, and this one had it spored out. So when I took the duff off the top, then there's white all underneath the top of the mushroom. And so you know it already spored out, like these, they're already spored out, and that's where the life cycle starts over again. Now, there's a lot of questions about identifying mushrooms, and you can go to different places, but it'll tell you the different traits. So usually when we're looking, we look for color, we look for stability. See this little bit on the bottom? Matsutake will always have sand, and if you look really closely, there's little root fibers. Now, how a Matsutake can grow in different types of soil, but yet still have this sandy point on the end, nobody knows. But it is typical of a Matsutake. And then, like Homer said, you smell that, and it's just wonderful. But you can see the different shapes of the tops, and I don't have a good Amanita, but like an Amanita, might be the same color, might have the same shape, but it'll have cornflakes on the top, little bitty like pieces of cornflakes on the top. You all know the red Amanita, right? The psychedelic or poisonous or whatever. Those little white things like Alice in Wonderland found, those I call cornflakes. That's what I was taught, that's what I call them. So if a mushroom has cornflakes on it, I don't touch them, I don't do anything. It won't hurt you to touch them, but if you ingest them, if you lick your fingers or whatever, pick up your bento and start eating with your fingers, you could get sick. So theoretically in Oregon, if we have the right climate, we could have Matsutake year-round. So the latest that I found one was January 5th, and it depends on the snow. So if it's snowy or icy and the temperature drops, then the Matsutake may freeze a little bit, but when they thaw out, perfectly fine. Or if not, if you have to ice pick them out of the ground, then you try and get them to the freezer as soon as possible. So I don't care if it's snowing, raining, freezing. I was taught that if they're good, pick them. So, and there's a rule of thumb too that the naturalists have nowadays, and that's you pick a third, you leave a third for the animals, and then you leave a third to spore out. So, but if they spore out and they're still really good, then you can take them with you. So Tricholoma matsutake, again, the gills are on them. There's a little veil right at the bottom, and that as it grows, that veil comes open, and then you can kind of strip the outer edge, and then you can also strip it like string cheese. So that's another way that you know that it's a good mushroom. I don't know what all this stuff means. The stipe or stem has a ring so that you can, again, strip down the edges. The spore print is white. The ecology is mycorrhizal, so it uses the whatchamacallit? The what? Mycelium, thank you. And the edibility is choice. I don't know where the E went. But it is very choice. In Japan, they run from $100 or 100 yen up. And so it's really important to understand the value of it because a lot of people don't get them. So Friday and Saturday, I led a hunt of 30 people each day. Friday, I had the Consul General of Japan in my group, which I didn't know until I read the stuff the day before. And this Consul General, I'm talking to him, and he goes, no, I didn't hunt mushrooms in Japan because most of that area is privately owned. And so you have to pay to hunt. And whether you're successful or not, you don't know. I've also been told a lot of people learned how to hunt mushrooms in Japan when they were stationed there because there were lots of good Matsutake hunting ground on the airbase. So that's how a lot of people that I've run into up on the mountain learned how to hunt Matsutake. But the Consul General, I asked him and he says, yeah, I'll be 94 next month. And it's like, oh my gosh, you look like you're 70. And I've got you out here and I hopefully don't lose you. That's my biggest fear, is losing somebody, especially as important as the Consul General. These are some lookalikes. And again, there's the white amanita. But if you can see down here how the stipe or the stem is kind of rippled, and it gets more bulbous at the bottom. You can see the cornflakes on the top, hopefully. The white rusula is a little bit whiter than a matsutake, and it has the dip in the middle. Like I said, when you're with your stick, you can tap the center and you'll know that it's not a matsutake. And then there's the kuroko. Kuroko, where are you? Where are you? Oh, right here. So a kuroko is actually a black mushroom. So it starts out kind of white and then it gets black. The underside is spongy and kind of porous, and it's bitter. So a lot of people will have to boil this 3 times, and then once they've done boiling it 3 times, then they'll do what's called tsukudani. They'll just boil it to death and season it and then eat it. So, but yeah, those are 3 that are very commonly mistaken for a matsutake. This person, and I wrote to her and she didn't write back, but she's done this for matsutake, and she's also done this for chanterelles. And what are lookalikes? How do you tell what are the identifying features? and yeah, what you can look for so that you don't get confused, because there are some that look like it that are actually related. There's a copper top, and it's a tricoloma, but it is more brown. So yeah, you can get this online, this e-pool art. Like I said, she's done this one, and she's done one for chanterelles, and they're fabulous. Here's another one, Instagram picture that's popping up on some of the sites and tells you 10 things you can do to ID. Generally, in the olden days, it was 3 things. So it was shape, color, smell. And then if you still weren't convinced, then you could do some of the others, like stripping it or squeezing it, or some of the other ones to get to know. And when I was little, I was taught that we only took our own mushrooms because everybody had their mushrooms. Now, this is not a boletus, as a slippery jack, it's a relation, but we would see these huge mushrooms, and we would so want to pick these huge mushrooms, but we weren't allowed to because those belonged to the Italians. It was their mushroom, and they're going to come by looking for their mushrooms, and if we took them and we didn't cook them because we didn't know how, then that would be a problem. Chanterelles, same thing. We don't know what they are. We don't know how to cook them. But then I learned when I was delivering Matsutake to people, they go, oh, Mickey Yasui loved chanterelles. So she'd always go, do you have any chanterelles in the car? And I'd go, yeah, you want some? She goes, yeah, I want to make some spaghetti. So she would make chanterelle spaghetti sauce on that, and several other people did too. So we learned as I got older and talked to some of these other people that had gone hunting with people from different ethnic groups, that they had their mushroom, but you know, they're getting up there and they can't hunt anymore. So could you, if you see them, could you pick them for me? So Leakey taught me that yes, you can pick this one. This is for the Germans, and this is where we find them, and so this is where we take them. And so as when Leakey was about 80, he was delivering about 60 different ones, some to Mexico to his uncle, some to California, to the minister's parents and his relatives in Colorado, and some to Japan. So it's something that we dearly love to share. And even if he had to go to Lily Market and buy some, he would buy some to ship because he didn't want to disappoint anyone. So that's how we get. We just don't want to disappoint anybody, because in the fall, I mean, that's your smell. That's your home. That's comfort. So if you look here, are those Matsutake? No, wrong color. So when the children are little, we teach them wrong color, wrong shape, wrong something, you know, no smell, whatever. So we teach them the identifying factors as we go, so that we don't end up having to take them. We just look at them and we can tell. What about this one? Right color, right shape, right humps. Yes. How many Matsutake are there? What do you think? Pretty close. There's 8. Good job. Right smell. My granddaughter at 18 months knew the smell. She knows it. She's got it. Right texture. Make sure it strips. Root fibers we talked about. Okay. So people go, how do you know where to go? And besides that, why are you telling us where to go? Homer said it's a secret, right? Well, my father used to take people out, and he did it like this. This may be their only opportunity to go mushroom hunting. And chances are they'll never remember where we took them. So not a problem. Let's take them out. Let's show them a good time. Let's get them some Matsutake. But for us, it was like, how are we going to find them? We're going to look for wind tunnels. And wind tunnels because, again, they have to spore out. And now they're saying that Matsutake will take a break. They will grow for a long time, and then all of a sudden, one year they don't show up. And the next year they don't show up. And the third year, oh, they're back. Here they are. And so we looked for those wind tunnels. And here's an example of wind tunnel on Mount Adams above Carson. And there's, get this, how many varieties do you think there are in that space? 13. 13 different kinds of mushrooms coming up, all in that space. And so if you look for the wind tunnel, you may get some lone spores coming up and find a mushroom or two. So don't be discouraged if you find a whole patch of rusulas, because when we took some people out this weekend, we pre-scouted, of course, and we tried to find this one, and one of the other scouts had actually accidentally broken the top. And so we're looking all over the place, and it's getting late, and we're going, oh, man. So we finally found it, and we're able to dig it up. But we had to look amongst all of these. Okay, everybody look for the rusulas, because there's a Matsutake in with the rusulas, trust us. And so we finally did find it. So that was kind of good that we didn't leave behind the ones we scouted. I know we did, because there were 20 up at Frog Lake, and we didn't pull out 20. Pulled out other things, but not 20 Matsutake. So I know they're still up there. So that's me. That's my sister. One of the places we like to look is along the water, because the convection currents will push up moisture to these areas. So walking along a creek, and you'll see me even looking over the edge of the creek underneath. And let me tell you, we found a half a dozen this last weekend because of that. So early on, when it's dry, we're going to go and we're going to walk along the creek, and we're going to find some Matsutake there. We also want to look up the hill, because you can see the way the mushrooms peek out. But if you're down below and you look up, you have a better chance of spotting it. Because a lot of times people, especially taller people than me, they'll look down and all they see is duff. You know, pine needles and branches and things. All they see is duff. But if you look up the hill, you see a little edge of white, and you get all excited like Homer does, or did, and you find that Matsutake peeking out like that. And then you run up the hill, and you holler, Matsutake, everybody come here, and, you know, come look, especially the first one of the season or the day. Now, rangers have told us about candy sticks. Candy sticks bloom in the spring, and so a lot of people will go out in the spring, maybe when they're looking for morels or whatever, and they'll be looking for the candy stick. And they'll waypoint that on their GPS, or they will look, remember where that spot is. And in the fall, they will come and look for the candy stick or that area, because the candy stick has the same symbiotic relationship between the tree and the roots and the item, the candy stick or the Matsutake or the chanterelles or whatever, and the exchange of sugars and waters. So people will say to do that. Now, I've only half a dozen times or less found a Matsutake along the root line, but again, I'm guessing where the root line is going, so it could be just me, but I have not had super luck with the candy sticks, but there are professional commercial people out there that rely upon those. But you never have to go too far. So do you guys see where the Matsutake is? Do you see where the road is? Yeah, that's not very far. So you don't have to go great distances to see them, find them. In fact, one of my favorite things is to hunt from the car. I can get 15 pounds in an hour hunting from the car. Because I wait until towards the end of the season when everybody's given up because it's raining. Who wants to go mushroom hunting in the rain besides my two girlfriends that were at Zigzag today? So anyway, we pick from the car. Somebody spots white. Somebody gets out and checks it out. Is it an amanita? No, it's a bounty. But you want to make sure, and this again was what was taught to us, is that you leave no trace, not only of garbage, anything else like that, but you don't want to expose the mycelium. You want to make sure it's covered up. You also want to make sure nobody knows where you got that mushroom. So that part's a secret. So there are still some secrets in Matsutake hunting. And then sharing the love. So this is just a couple of groups that I took out last year. And you can see everybody got one. So. And then respecting our elders. This is Misao Minagi. She's 105. And this was last year up at Zigzag, where we're going this Saturday. And her mother sent her out behind her house in Japan and hunted mushrooms. So matsutake and kurokos, wherever the kurokos are, were what she would hunt in her backyard up in the forest in Japan. And so she still can do it. We still want to respect the knowledge that they have. And yeah, I love it. That's her grandniece, and that's my girlfriend. And then we like to pass it on. Those are my two grandkids. I just had to show them off. She's now 9. He's 6. But yeah, being outdoors is just part of it. And living off the land, sharing that, and having that sense of family, community, and educational. So even if you get skunked, it was a good day. It was beautiful, blue skies, sunshine, the smell in the air, the trees, the wind, the mountain, all of that is just so wonderful that I end up taking weird pictures. And then my lovely husband, because he doesn't really want to hunt mushrooms, he hunts garbage. And so we compare, and usually on Mount Adams, he beats me. He gets more garbage than I get mushrooms. Anyway, go out there, happy hunting, because you never know what you see or what you'll do. But I hope you enjoyed my slides. I've got some things. Everybody should have a mushroom guide when they go out, even if it's a mushroom key, or if you print one out yourself saying, these are the mushrooms that I'm concerned about. I want to only pick the ones that I'm going to take and use. So I want to make sure that people going with me don't ask me 50 questions about 100 mushrooms. Make up your own key. These are the ones we're concerned about. My cousin's wife loves to cut out articles about mushrooms, or pick up articles at Trader Joe's or New Seasons or whatever. I like to know what the government is saying, what are our resources available, what have the studies said about good stewardship and how we can treat the land and make sure that we have mushrooms for a long time. I want to make sure that I got arrested for jaywalking in Portland when I was 17. And my mother always told me that if anybody's going to get in trouble, if you do anything to get in trouble, I'm going to know about it. And so, yeah, she didn't know about the jaywalking. But I do obey the laws. I do get a permit for Mount Adams. I do have my mushroom maps no matter where I'm going, so that I can show that I do know what the regulations are. And yeah, you get a stack of maps by the time you're done. And that sort of thing. I have my senior Forest Service pass. So if I'm at a trailhead that requires one, I have one. So I've been gifted a lot of things, books. This has a little chapter about Matsutake and me. And this one is about the Matsutake, the mushroom at the end of the world, by Anat Singh. And she has done some supplementary ones, but she traveled all over the world looking for Matsutake. Finland, Korea, Japan, the United States, all over. And it's really captivating. So that's kind of my jam. That's kind of my end. So if you have any questions.
I'm going to steal this. So now you've got this one. Joe, if you have a chance, sorry, I'm doing my double mic thing. If you have a chance to bring the lights up, let's do this. Let's ask some questions, and then I want to give you all plenty of time to come down and ask more questions and see things and smell a matsutake. So if you have a question, this is your chance to ask it. All right.
While she's getting there, you can come up and look at my implements. I have a weed getter, a ski pole, and this is a golf club that was welded on with a fork. But you can see that it's not really the best for mushroom hunting, but it's kind of fun to use.
We'll come look at them for sure.
Thanks, this was so great. What's the early history of the Japanese community foraging for Matsutake in the Pacific Northwest? Like, which generation went into the woods and said, aha, these are the same ones, and we should be looking for them here?
If you go to YouTube and look at Mushroom Seasons by Tristan Stock, he researched that, and it was the first generation Issei that's in Hood River that started and found Matsutake and didn't die. So that's how we found out that they were here and people were comfortable picking them.
Okay, there's a story for you. All right, who has a question? Hopefully I didn't just leave. Someone over here? Oh, thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about what's so unique about the Matsutake from a culinary perspective, and how some of the traditional ways it's used in food in Japan, and also how it can be integrated into Western style foods?
Matsutake, in Japan, one of the reasons they're so expensive is that they have a shape. Does anybody recognize what shape this is? Okay. They have this shape, and this shape for businessmen is very important. It shows prosperity, it shows manliness, it shows successful business. And so if you have these and share them, then that's a great honor in Japan. And that's one of the reasons they're so expensive. So again, Matsutake have a scent that no other mushroom has. Now, they either smell like cinnamon, red hots, or dirty socks. So depending on how old they get, they can get really stinky, Leave this out for another day and you'll get the stinky socks part. But leave this out for a while and you'll have that nice cinnamony scent. So,
Okay.
as far as the culinary aspect, because it is so distinctive, it is so strong that a lot of times one little mushroom can do a whole pot of rice or a soup or something like that, and you'll have that distinctive smell and taste, and it does go a long way. My cousin likes to have them cooked in butter. I would never do that, but he likes it in butter. And then generally, you can put it with a dipping sauce of soy sauce and vinegar, or soy sauce and lemon. There's all sorts of things. My other cousin did Matsutake risotto, but that takes too long for me. Sorry, I'm a lazy cook.
All right, over here, go for it.
What does the matsutake taste like? Like, what other foods was it like?
Nothing. There is no other flavor like a matsutake. And again, how you cook it and how you eat it will determine how you best like it. I met a man in Tacoma, from Tacoma, belonged to 2 mycological societies, picked matsutake really good, but never ate any. He came to one of my foraging things, and I had pickled matsutake because my dad always ate pickled matsutake and drank beer, right? And so I served it that way, and he had some. He's like, wow, this is the way to eat matsutake. And so after that, he ate matsutake, but for the 50 years before that, he never did. So there is no other thing that tastes like it, smells like it, or anything else. I don't know how to else describe that.
Go for it. What's your question?
Is all mycelium connected, or is it like different kinds of mushrooms have like different mycelium?
Not all mushrooms use mycelium. All their mycelium is connected underground. And again, we try not to block that. If you take a mushroom, say these 2 are together, and you dig this one and say, I'm going to let this one grow a little bit longer. But while you're digging this one, you pop this one, or you tap it too hard, it will stop growing. So you have to be really careful to make sure that you don't bump the mycelium, you don't cut it. That's why we rock them, just gently back and forth. We don't take and uncover the whole area. We just simply go down along the stem and pop it enough to get it to move, and then we rock it back and forth until it comes out of the ground.
Okay. Let's do one more, and then Joe, if you can tee up the slides for the end, we'll do that, and then we'll get to do show and tell. Thank you.
I was curious if you could speak to the pickling of the matsutake a little bit more. Recipe and or technique?
Recipe, in a lot of Japanese cooking, recipe is by taste. So if you ask your auntie or your mom or your grandma to give you the recipe, they'll look at you like, are you crazy? There's no recipe. It's all by taste. So you take soy sauce and you take vinegar and you decide, oh, I like that flavor. But the guy next to you goes, oh, that's got way too much lemon. And the other guy goes, oh, that's got way too much soy sauce. So you have to find the flavor that you like. So what you do is you take these, take them and strip them into little bitty sections, and then you grill them for about a minute in the microwave, or maybe a couple minutes at about 350 until they start to release juices. And then you make your soy sauce and your vinegar, or your soy sauce and lemon, and then you just dip them. And then you put them in a jar and cold bath or warm bath them, however you do that. I don't know. I'm not. Sorry.
Okay. Sounds like you need like
water bath them.
Okay. Real quick, before we come up here, Joe, if you don't mind going to the outro slides. Is it me? You need me to do it? So one of the things we did anyone here go on the mycology field trip last season? You did, Kyle. Anyone else? Okay. At the end of it, it was really fun. We went hunting with Michael Bugh, a local mycologist, and then we came back to the Mount Adams campus in Trout Lake, and he showed us how he cooked everything, including with some of the wine that he makes himself. So this is making me think we need to do another trip like that so we can cook things in another way. Okay, let me go through a couple final thank yous, and then we'll head to you. So next month, Geology Alive, Understanding Geologic Hazards in the Gorge with Dick Iverson. Some of you guys may have seen Dick give a talk on debris slides, which is one of those topics that when you hear it, you're like, debris slides? Come on. It was amazing. Someone described it as having your neighbor describe debris slides to you in a fun way. So, and if we live in the Gorge, you should know. So Dick submitted again this year, and what I loved is at the end of his proposal, because sometimes you hear these like doom and gloom, you're like, I do not want to know about more hazards in my life. He said, I'm going to tell you about all this stuff and why I continue to live in the Gorge. So next month, that is November 13th. Tickets are already on sale online. I want to quickly thank Kyle Ramey, our photographer, who every season should do something. What do you want, Kyle? Some sort of, just hold a mushroom. Oh, like this. Okay, we got. Okay, you're welcome. All right. Okay, it's very important work we're doing here, people. I want to thank CCA. You guys may have met Tim Harkins as the new executive director here. If this place feels more vibrant and alive, it's because it is more vibrant and alive now, so that's great. Joe with Big Britches is up in the booth. If you've been to Rocky Horror, he is the reason for that happening over in Bingen. I want to thank Caleb Haas and Mari Heyman again for sharing the film, and for Maya for emailing me in the first place and getting coffee. Thank you. Thanks to all of you guys for helping us get season 15 started off. Thank you to Homer, wherever you are, and especially thank you to Amy Peterson so much. Okay. All right, with that, come on down, smell a matsutake, and hopefully we'll see you next month. Thank you.